All
right, mic's up. Studio is live. Good morning, Lagos. Thank you very much for tuning in to your Love Music, Love Life station, Smooth 98.1. It's time for Freshly Pressed 981, where we give you detailed analysis of the national news stories. I'm Ayo Mairo Ese.
And I'm Valentine Ohu. Good morning.
Good morning. Joining us for the analysis this morning, we have Orji Uka. Morning, Orji.
Good morning. How are you?
Very well, thank you. Orji is at Orji Uka on Twitter. And then we have Justin Ijeh. Morning, Justin.
Morning, Lagos.
Right, Justin is at Justin Ijeh on Twitter. Here's how you can find us on Twitter at Smooth981FM using the hashtag FreshlyPressed981.
Please send a message to this WhatsApp number to be part of the show to contribute to the stories as well. 0809-444-0981. That is our WhatsApp number.
In addition to that, we're streaming live on YouTube, so please head on to YouTube if you'd like to see what's going on in the studio, and also send us a message using the live chat option. We'll get to it once we see those.
All right, thank you. Our first story is from the Guardian newspaper. Orji, rights groups and Omangege, they are trading words, disagreeing essentially over the senator's alleged forgery and perjury claims by the group. They called on law enforcement agents or agencies to initiate fresh prosecution against the senator for allegedly concealing his conviction by the State Bar Court of California in Los Angeles. Well, the senator is saying he has no case to answer, that he was cleared of such charges. Your thoughts, please.
Well, first thing is the claim, like you said, is that he was convicted.
Yes.
And they've asked for two things. The Coalition of Civil Society Groups has demanded his resignation. They've also asked for him to be impeached, for the Senate to begin impeachment proceedings against him. What they've not asked for is for him to be recalled. That would have been given three options. So he can be impeached if he resigns. So that's, I want to believe that what they've asked for is in the alternative. So if he does not resign after a reasonable time, they should begin impeachment proceedings. But having said that, I have always stand by the procedure or provision of the law to the effect that everyone is presumed innocent until proven guilty. The case here is that he was in fact convicted. I do not know because he's denied it. So it's up to the person who is claiming this to bring evidence. They say they have available evidence. They've even given the case number of the case in which he was allegedly convicted, and they also contend that he willfully concealed these facts from INEC, thereby contravening provisions of the Constitution. But the claim is that he was also suspended from practicing law in California as far back as 1996 as a result of this said conviction. So these are actually very huge allegations to make. These are very profound allegations. I hope they are not true. If they are, then the right thing has to be done.
But imagine, if just hypothetically, if they are, what could happen?
Well, the three options available would be, as a reasonable person, we discussed last week about Nigerian public officials not resigning.
Yes.
This is not something that someone should. We've had cases in the past where we've had cases of people resigning as a result of certificate forgery. This is worse than it. So if it is true, I think the right thing will be for him to resign. I hope, like I said, that it's not true. If it is, it's very profound. Part of the requirements under the Constitution, part of the qualification to contest for an election is that you must not have been convicted, particularly for fraud-related offenses. But the funny thing is that there is a time limit for which you are barred from holding office. I think it's about 10 years, if I'm not mistaken. But in this case, it's not even a question of him not being qualified. It's a question of
perjury.
Yeah, perjury.
Is this the same gentleman who was responsible for the mace?
That's
the same person. Come on, Orji, you're very optimistic.
No, the thing is, the people you should blame are his party members who, despite what he did, because what he did was terrible.
No, I wouldn't just blame his party members. He led a gang of thugs into the hallowed chambers of this country. In other words, he committed treason, in my opinion. He assaulted the hallowed chambers of the National Assembly and took away the mace. And he's still sitting pretty. And you're talking about one thing he forged some years ago that something's going to happen to him.
Allegedly.
I was going to ask that when we have cases like this is not the first time we've had, situations crop up with members of the hallowed chambers, like Justin mentioned. But have we seen repercussions? Have we seen consequences? Have they
The
been
imperative
recalled?
of consequence is dead, like I keep saying. Until we resurrect it, sorry, no dice.
Second question, like you mentioned, so who's responsible for this now? Because you talk about his party on one hand. How about the people who voted him into
Yeah, that's
power
why I said it's the
and who have
third
the
option
power?
of recall.
Alright.
When someone keeps embarrassing you like this, I don't want to mention this. Like I said, when someone is accused, despite the fact that those in public office appear when they get in there, they forget about the majority of Nigerians. I still believe that the right thing should be done, which is giving the benefit of the doubt.
Yes,
The presumption of innocence is in his favor.
true.
But if it turns out that he was in fact convicted and he concealed this fact to INEC, then there should be consequences.
It comes from
and
the
the
state
burden
where,
of the burden of proof rests on who? The group or the Senate?
you see, I'm
The
just
two
going to
rest of
keep
the
raining
board.
on this parade. I happen to be from Delta State, right? Original. So he comes from a state where someone who was convicted for money laundering in Nigeria, money laundering acts committed in Nigeria, was convicted in London, served a jail term, came back to a hero's welcome.
Yes, the
He's a
godfather.
political godfather
The godfather.
right now.
Oh, by the way, they're asking for that money to be brought to the state.
But the state issued a statement and even wrote to the UK courts at the time saying that their money wasn't missing. So which money are they looking for?
Interesting. A country called Nigeria. Let's move on to the next story. Punch newspaper has this one. This for you, Justin. SIM cards. A man, his name Anthony Okolie. He was arrested by the DSS and detained for 10 weeks in cuffs. What did he do? So he purchased a SIM card that cost him 1,000 naira that supposedly belonged to Hanan Buhari, the same lady we were talking about yesterday. She seems to be very famous this time. But let's talk about this. He's suing for 500 million naira.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I would differentiate between notoriety and fame. She's garnering a lot of notoriety. I don't know about fame.
Famous for the wrong reasons.
Yeah, famous for the wrong reasons. So what was Anthony Okolie's crime? He bought a SIM card. He registered the SIM card as required by Nigerian law in his name. Now, by the rules that govern the regulations in the telco industry, if you purchase a SIM card and you do not use it after a period of time, it churns. It's called churn. The network will withdraw that SIM, that number, and reissue it to somebody. So apparently, Ms. Hanan Buhari had a number. Maybe she dropped the number, she stopped using. For whatever reason, the network, in this case MTN, had churned the line. There is no way Mr. Okolie would have known who the previous user of the line was. He walked in like any other citizen, bought a line, and registered it. And months down the line, he gets picked up by the DSS. People should read the story. And he stole, quite frankly, that in no uncertain terms, the reason why you're being picked up is because you're using a number that used to belong to the daughter of the president. And by his own words,
Dr. Excellency.
Yes, her mini excellency. In his own words, he says that they told him and they marked his file first family. And get this, he was denied access to legal counsel. He was denied access to his family. He was held for how long? 10 weeks in handcuffs. And they told him they were waiting for Miss Hanan Buhari, who was in the UK studying
photography,
studying photography, to come back and clear him in person. And she had told them she didn't have time. So he had to stay in cuffs and wait for her to finish and come back. I don't know how he eventually got released, but now he's suing for 500 million. So he's joined MTN in the suit. He's joined the daughter of the president, Hanan Buhari, in the suit. And he has joined Mr. President, I think. Okay, no. He has joined... So just the DSS, he has joined the DSS, the daughter of the president, and MTN in the suit. Now, I made a statement relative to the last story. The imperative of consequence is dead. Impunity everywhere. I don't know how the DSS is going to defend this. I don't know what allegations you will say stood against this guy. There's no common sense in thinking.
Justin, we're both similar perturbed about this news because I'm asking. So what could have been the charge against this guy? Like, what could have been the wrongdoing that he was accused of?
They told him that he was
that he
using a
stole
number
the president's
used.
daughter's SIM card, or what?
Did she have a missing phone?
Yeah, I think one of the things that's unclear in this report is, like you mentioned, what his charge really was, apart from the fact that he got a SIM card that once belonged to the
Or
daughter.
was he
which
receiving
was
calls from people who had the daughter's number and probably pretended to
impersonating.
be?
They didn't state that. That's the issue.
There's something like that there was something like that in the papers yesterday.
So now they're trying the DSS is trying a smear campaign. But
Because
I
in this
dare say that
particular
if
report-
there was impersonation involved, he would not have been released in the first instance because there will be a substantive charge to hold him on. But it's I would love, I don't hold out hope, but I would love, because this affects the presidency in a way that touches directly to the lives of Nigerians. This young woman was trending a couple of days for using the private jet, the presidential jet for her private.
And as a follow-up to the story, Aisha Buhari, the wife to the president, published a 55-second video of the daughter using the plane, just so that, according to them, the presidency said the reason why she put up that video was to make the daughter feel better, to just calm her down from the reactions of Nigerians, because everybody was mocking her for using.
And that came from an official spokesperson.
Yeah.
So you decide to insult Nigerians in order to calm it down. I don't understand.
No. Because the people accused her of taunting Nigerians by going further to.
That's what I'm saying. So you decide to taunt Nigerians further.
No.
She
doesn't.
What people in authority need to understand is, and no shade on this demographic I'm about to reference, but I'm using it in a very generic term. The Malians are coming for you all. These young Nigerians that you keep taunting, that you keep throwing nonsense in their face, their passion is rebellion. Their virtue is irreverence. And they are angry.
But the intention is not to taunt Nigerians.
All right, if you say so, Valentine. But let's go to some comments. Zikolo says...
No, that's what the presidency said, not Valentine.
Okay, according to the presidency.
Yeah.
Zikolo says Mr. Hanan has a case. Yes, Mr. Okoli in this case. So Hanan is the one that is being sued.
That's the daughter.
Yes, daughter. I want to plead with the media to continue to support the case with coverage. I doubt the man did anything wrong because he was released without trial and even given the same SIM, which he confirmed he's still using. What kind of country is this?
He's asking for 500 million from the courts, and I hope to.
It's kind of cheap, man.
What?
I won't buy you a jet.
Miriam from Lekki, SIM card for a jet. Wow. Miriam from Lekki says, I'm really interested in seeing the end of Mr. Okoye versus MTN versus Hanan case. I hope he can get a very good lawyer. He already has a legal representation. I hope we'll see the end of that case.
Mecca Vincent thinks the same as you, Justin. He said he should have sued them in trillions. Impunity everywhere in this country.
Okay. Let's move on to you, Orji, for this next story. The Vanguard newspaper reports that NITDA, that is the National Information Technology Development Agency, they say they are joining the House of Representatives Committee on ICT. That's the chairman, Alhaji Ladu Abdullah. He says that EFCC will join that committee to investigate telecom providers over alleged non-remittance of the 1% annual turnover to this body. Why? Because that 1% is supposed to be paid by telecoms just to fund the development of that agency. Your thoughts, please.
My thoughts clearly are that this case, this story is just another example of what is wrong with also how we run governance in Nigeria. So I'm quoting him now. We are involving, this is involved National Assembly. We are involving the Attorney General, the Inspector General of Police, Department of State Services, and EFCC. Now, there is indeed the provision of Section 12(2) of the NIDA Act, which provides that certain companies, which include telecommunication companies, should pay 1% of their profit before tax.
It's already a law.
It is.
So why involve all this?
I'm going there. So the Act says in Section 12(2), 1%. Now, Section 16 of the Act now goes ahead to give the powers to the FIRS to assess and collect the levy. Now, where a company has failed to, there is now a procedure for proceeding against that company. filing a charge against them,
Mm.
the responsibility is that of FIRS.
Mm.
You remember in this same country, under the same administration, we had an Attorney General of the Federation who sued MTN for alleged non-payment of tax. And we shouted them that, look, this is not your business. There is FIRS.
Mm-hmm.
They are the ones who have the responsibility to assess and take steps against MTN if indeed MTN has failed to pay taxes.
No, MTN, the telecoms.
No, this is I'm talking about a different case, that of the AG.
Okay.
After a year or two of wasting our money, the AG has now gone in the past 2 or 3 days to withdraw that case. And then, of course, nothing happens, no consequences.
And there was nothing mentioned in the news about that? What was that?
No, it was in the news.
Okay.
He withdrew the case about some, I think it was last week. Check it up, the AG withdraws case against MTN. We said it then that, look, you have no business. Of course, he proceeded. He must have cost money. If I'm not sure he did the case himself, so he must have got a lawyer to do it. Now, we also have a law that says this is what you do. This is how you go against the communication companies who have failed to pay this levy. You are now involving DSS because, of course, DSS is involved in everything now. You are involving, and that's the same thing we do as ordinary Nigerians, and that's what also happens up there. You have a problem with your neighbor over a contractual dispute or a land tenancy matter, you go and involve the police. You find a way to add, or you involve the military, depending on, it's usually police. If you have more money, you go to the army. We're making a joke of governance. The constitution has provided that the National Assembly themselves have powers to investigate. So what is wrong with them inviting these companies, because they do have powers to summon people to come in for purpose of investigation?
Yeah.
They themselves don't know it, but they have lawyers who work for them. So who is advising them? Why involving the police? Why involving the army? Why involving the IGP over a 1% non-payment when this is the responsibility of FIRS?
So last year, there was a publication by one of the House of Reps committees.
Yes.
My company was listed, over 500 companies, non-remittance of some tax. We went into the records of, it was actually Pencom remittances. And we were clean and
Pensions,
clear.
yes.
Yeah, so we took our evidence, went to Abuja for the hearings, so-called hearings. I spent 3 days with two of my staff, paying hotel bills and all of that, to explain to people who had the records already that, look, this money you're saying I have not paid. These are my receipts. I've paid you now. We submitted the evidence, sat down, waited for the committee. On the third day, the committee finally sees us, went through, so, okay, thank you for coming, you can go.
After 3 days?
After 3 days.
Hotel bills.
Yes.
Wow.
Well, ease of doing business in Nigeria.
Madness.
But it seems like this new bill that's gratefully been signed into law yesterday is going to, address these issues. Ease of doing business, one of them. Tax issue being another. The VAT increase to 7.5%. Finance bill has been signed yesterday. The president tweeted. I like how that he's tweeting about this. It's very, very interesting. Now, a lot of people are praising this finance bill, being signed as one of the major gains of this administration. But what are your thoughts on this, Justin?
Well, in and of itself, it's a good development. It shows that some thought is being put towards fiscal management and all of that. But we've never been lacking in good policies. We've never been lacking in good laws with good intentions. What we've been lacking in is the ability to execute without fear or favor, without coloration or bias, right? No matter whose ox is God.
And meeting up to standards that we set.
Yeah. So, but let me not rain on this one. It's fine. It's a good look forward, and I'm still trying to get my hands on the actual final copy of the bill that was signed.
Okay.
I think this is something we should devote a lot more time probably on another segment to work on. But it makes a whole lot of sense in that the bill will reform quite a number of things. There are 5 taxes mainly that will be affected. Petroleum Profit Tax Act, the Customs and Excise Tax Act, the Company Income Tax Act, Personal Income Tax Act, Value Added Tax Act, Stamp Duties Tax Act, and the Capital Gains Tax. So just picking at random, we've already heard that value added tax is moving from 5% to 7.5%.
Company income tax?
Company income tax. So for companies whose turnover is less than 25 million annually, this reflects the focus on making life easier for the small and medium scale industries. So if your turnover is less than 25 million, you are now exempt from company income tax, which is the tax.
25 million a year.
A year, yeah. So company income tax is the one you pay at the end of the business year. It's not a transactional tax. It's a tax on your revenue. All right. So looking at it, I don't know what the provisions are for the personal income tax yet, so I can't comment on that. Stamp Duties Act, we can expect to see a whole lot more things being affected by Stamp Duty Act, because one of the key objectives of the government here, there are 5 pillars to this bill, right? One of them is raising revenue. It's listed last when the government talks about it, but I think that's the cardinal one. So the other things that I wanted to do was bring our tax practices to global best practice standards. What do you call it? Incentivize infrastructure. So there's implication for the real estate industry in particular, right? Based on the adjustments they've made to the capital gains tax. There used to be a lot of double dipping. So if you developed a building and you sold it, right, there's a tax on the front end and there's another tax on the back end when you're sharing revenue to shareholders and all that. So I really hope we get an opportunity to dig into this a bit more, but I encourage people to get a grip, get a handle on the tax. And
also another very important part for the ordinary man, the tax, the stamp duty one that goes on amounts, so like usual transactions that we do, the 15 naira.
Electronic transactions are coming under the hammer under this one.
Yes, they are. We had someone share a comment earlier on that, so a pharmacy was still charging that 15 naira, and they were saying, well, they're still charging us, so we're still going to charge you.
So by this finance bill now that has been signed into law yesterday, what does that entail in sense of that stamp duty charge?
I don't think it's going anywhere.
Really?
Yes.
Well, stamp duty will still be charged, but the consumers or we're not supposed to bear the burden of that.
No, so stamp duty is actually an indirect tax. So it's the consumer
but
who's initiating the
to
transaction that will.
Oh, right.
You know the usual one that the service stations and a lot of stores have
The
been
15 naira.
So that's not stamp duty. You're confusing it. There are 250 naira taxes in the air right now.
Please differentiate this.
There's the stamp duty 15 naira, and there's the transaction levy on POS transactions.
Right.
Yes. So
That's the one you're referring
POS
to.
Transactions I'm referring to.
This law is not addressing that. That's
Right.
that's CBN's ball game along with the banking industry. But again, understanding how things work in that space, I don't think it's going anywhere, because one of the mistakes that the regulatory authorities keep making is we are over intervening in private sector business. The way the Nigerian financial industry is structured, there are a lot of layers to the technology services being provided. So when you see that front end, and the banks take the beating, the banks are everybody's piñata because they are the ones who have direct customer interface, right?
Yes.
But the truth is, a lot of the time, just like the bank is the one collecting this stamp duty for the government, the banks are collecting that money for all the technology stack service providers who are enabling that convenience that you're enjoying. But they are the face that you see. So Ayo hates them with a passion.
I just want fairness and for us to be well represented. Thank you very much. Right, and he's asking when the effective date of this act will be, and in the bill, the effective date was 1st of January 2020. What do we do? So are we going to backdate it?
It's now a law.
It
That's
is
what
a
you
law.
need to know.
All right, okay, fine. Thank you very much. So Colin says the finance law bill addresses that POS transaction fee. It's now been
it
increased
does.
to 10K threshold.
Threshold.
So
That's exactly what I was
No,
trying
but
to
that
do.
was addressed before this bill.
Yeah, but it takes effect
It's now,
now.
so it's now,
well,
it's
true,
now,
yes.
it's now in the law.
So if any transaction below 10,000 naira, please
Is
no 15
exempt.
naira POS charge on that.
Josh. All right, thank you very much. That's really key. Let's move on to our next story from the Guardian newspaper. We have that Buhari approves committees to deliver 2 trillion naira Mambila power project. And very quickly, Orji talks about the execution of this particular project. Let's discuss this, please.
Yeah, so there's really nothing much to discuss other than the fact that 2 extra committees have been added to the number of committees we have in Nigeria. One is
Is he standing or sitting?
it's in the steering committee. So there's an interministerial steering committee. Then there's also a project delivery committee. It's a huge project. It's the only question you ask is, why do we waste time with projects like this? For a country that has deficient power supply, we have huge power supply issues. We should not think twice about projects like this. It's something that we should give our all. It's just when thinking about this Mambila Dam project, because it's been on for quite a while now. We also remember the Ijeh steel. We have lots of such projects. Well, if naming extra committees is what it takes to get it done, well, let them get it done.
Okay.
There's they have their terms of reference, and we understand that they will be announced. So they have 6 months to. They have a number of things they are supposed to do, execute the project, finalize the review of the project engineering and technical design concept, obtain loan, that's an important one, obtain loan approval from China Exim Bank. So what needs to be done should be done. This is a huge project that should help Nigeria. We shouldn't be talking about 5,000 or 7,000 megawatts in 2020.
Right.
All right, thank you.
Collins Ine on YouTube says, I've always felt Aisha's anger with her husband's administration in her perceived restriction from such perks as private trips and First Lady activities. She also said, which one is Val saying, no, she wasn't. She taunted Nigerians. Thank you very much, Collins. Michael Adetutu says, based on the effective date of the Finance Bill, yes, it's now a law, but it has to be in the official gazette before implementation.
Thank you very much.
And the VAT
We have
charge.
Chibuna saying the VAT charge is charged at the point of consumption. This law still needs to be gazetted, like Michael had mentioned, and the effective date determined. All tax consumed before it's gazetted will not be subject to incremental charge. While this charge is the lowest in our sub-region, my worry is about accountability.
Thank you very much.
True.
All right, let's move on to the next one, Justin. Guardian reports that some leaders have come together to say that we don't destroy Nigeria. Go on, Shoyinka, others warn leaders. Please take us through this report. It's from this happened at the Never Again Conference 2020, organized by Igbo think tank Nzuka Muna and Indigo Lagos.
Okay. Is Nzuko Umunna? You almost impressed me.
I beg your pardon. Nzuka Umuna.
That's good.
Well done.
Thank you.
Well done.
Thank
Well
you.
done. So, of course, the Nzuko Umunna is a pan-Igbo conference. Why are we at this point? It's almost January 15. What's the significance of January 15? That is the day that the coup, which set us on the path to a war that, honestly speaking, I don't think Nigeria has stopped fighting or recovered from, started. That was the day the Nzogu and co, the five majors, enacted a coup that eventually led to a series of events that culminated in a war. So a section of the country typically organizes talk shops and stuff like that to try and remember how we got here. Okay, and the theme for this year is Never Again. So this is a Never Again Conference 2020. And you had Nobel laureates, Professor Shoyinka in attendance, former president or former head of state Yakubu Gowon, Professor Anya Oanya, and a host of people. And they basically, the sound bites coming out of it is, okay, reminding everybody that we need to keep the country together.
Yep.
People should stop beating the drums of war and all that. And there is a place for things like this. There is a place, because generally those incidents that happen, the whole Biafra thing is something Nigeria as a corporate does not like to address. So there's a place for things like this. However, for me as an individual, I am worried about the fact that the generation coming, these people I keep referring to, they don't care about all of this. We've bequeathed to them a legacy that is nothing to write home about. And if we thought Biafra was bad, what these kids are going to do if we don't set the country right is going to shock the world.
I think Professor Patu Tomi and Moyeka Wenu alluded to this when they talk about the war of words on social media. Indeed, he says that Nigerians are at war in public conversations, particularly on social media, and there's no restriction. So talking about the fact that there are even new avenues and platforms.
Even forget social media for an instant. Again, sticking with the narrative of the Malians, they are for me, they are a temperature gauge for me, right? So there was a concert where I was talking to somebody about it, and he said the digital Malians met the physical Malians.
Ones,
So there is the social media enclave, and there is the street level, and that is the one that I'm scared of, because we banter a lot on social media and it ends there. But the people who are ready to bring it to flesh and bone,
The truth is, on the online conversations largely influences the offline conversations, and the offline conversations spark the fire faster than what happens online. And most of the time, those engaged in the online conversations have no clue what's happening
on the ground, really. Yes.
Right, thank you very much. On Never Again says El Como. The civil war ended on January 12, 1917, hence the conference on January 13. It has nothing to do, actually was referred, the coup was, referenced in the story.
Yes. And also comment on this one, Tribune reacts again, says should please also help to articulate how we can move all the traders that moved from Aba to Ganzhou in China. I beg, since people can't feed themselves, see what transpired at the last xenophobia attacks. The new war is that of the mind and against the haves and the have-nots. These our leaders need to be transformed themselves.
Thank you very much for your comments. Unfortunately, we cannot take any more as our time is spent. Thank you, Orji Uka, for coming and for your great analysis. Thank you as well, Justin Ijeh at Justin Ijeh, Orji Uka. Don't forget to follow us as well at Smooth 981 FM. Let's take the conversation online using the hashtag freshlypressed981. In a few minutes, we'll be having the Grapevine 981, where we review some of the biggest entertainment stories as well as new songs making our airwaves this morning.
Malian,